I feel like being self-made is actually just being a cog in a bigger wheel and making sure that you're playing a role within that cog.
Ronnie2k?
What's up? It's a vibe in here. I was like tuning in. I'm like, look at this music. How are
I,
you?
good. Do you know the two brothers Ao and Teo?
I don't believe so.
You got to check them out. I interviewed them a couple days ago. Two brothers. Social media got them started. They're dancers. They're singers. They're amazing. They're so talented and so raw. They're awesome.
I'll,
I will
I'll,
send.
I'll, def-
I'll send you all their songs. They're awesome.
I'll
They're awesome.
definitely check them out. That's dope.
So, Ronnie, I'm super excited to talk to you because for a number of reasons, which we'll unpack and get into in a minute. But for your fans to know who I am and for you to know who I am. So I'm Brett Barish. I own a liquor company. I started a whole bunch of brands. I don't know if you're familiar with Ace of Spades. Do you remember that
Of
brand?
course. Yeah. I'm
Um,
very familiar with your brand.
Douce, Bel Air, Bamboo, McQueen. I started a series called Self-Made. We're on our season 5. We did it a few years ago, and we've kept doing it through COVID, where I get to interview people that have made it. And when I was growing up, I didn't understand how anybody got there. Everyone just got there. There was no this that you never heard the struggle side. So I love hearing the get and the tough part, and that's where the self-made came from. But I start with everybody, and I'll start with you, Ronnie. What does self-made mean to you?
I don't think there is such thing as self-made. I think that there's a lot of people that play a role in that, all the way from your upbringing. And I was lucky enough to have very great parents who allowed me to extend my wings and do kind of what I wanted to do. And now I get to represent this amazing video game company that has a lot of very, very talented people that work for it. And so I feel like being self-made is actually just being a cog in a bigger wheel, and making sure that you're playing a role within that cog, I guess.
But when I read your background, and it seemed like before this is prior to NBA 2K, you did a lot of little things. Am I right?
I mean, I think everybody's trying to figure out what they want to do. Sorry about the dog, by the way. Um, I went to law school. I studied to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a sports agent. And then I went to work for a couple of minor league sports teams. It was always like everything that kept skewing me back to sport. And I think, especially basketball. And I got lucky that in technology is also another one of my passions. Gaming is another one of my passions. And this perfect storm of, all my interests aligning to, make this a profession and carve out a niche was again, a lot of luck, definitely a lot of hard work. But opportunity meets, that expression. I don't need to finish that expression.
Did, what did you want to do as a little kid? Like, what did you want to be?
I wanted to be a basketball player. That didn't work out.
But
Wasn't quite
that's
that
what,
good. No, I always loved sports. Like, it was always a thing. I mean, in middle school, elementary school, I'd play basketball 3-4 hours a day. I mean, I just wore out those courts. I was wearing out my couple pairs of sneakers every single couple weeks. So it always came back to sports to me. Now, look, I am from a Indian family, an Indian upbringing, and there was a lot of pressure to do, one of the kind of careers that you would think of: engineering, doctor, et cetera. Go to lots of years of post-grad school, and I mean, I did law, and that was probably the closest I felt like I could get to that. But at the same time, for me, it just came roaring back to sports over and over again, and basketball in
what
specific.
was it? My hardest. I started this company 20 years ago, and
Hmm.
the hardest part. I was 31 when I started it. That 31 years was so frustrating because
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. it's unbelievably frustrating.
Yeah, but
And
you know how you should look at that, and what I always tell, our audience, which is obviously generally younger, video game audiences, I don't think people can really make huge mistakes in their 20s. Like I tell this story all the time. I'm in social media, obviously, and now influencer marketing. 20 years ago, those weren't a thing, right? Like, so when you're studying in school and you're getting your vocational training for whatever it is that you are going to do, yeah, sure, there's traditional doctor, like I said, the doctor, engineer, lawyer, you have that path, and that's the only path. A lot of times the career that you're looking for may just not exist, and then obviously the training behind it doesn't exist. I say that all the time, but if we're moving towards AI and like, flying cars and God knows what, right? Like all of those industries don't exist, which means the education doesn't exist either. So I always tell, my audience not to beat themselves up if it hasn't clicked, but just to really make sure that you stay passionate and hardworking and really focused on what your interests are, because I really believe that you can make money doing anything as long as you really put your heart and soul into it, and you just don't take no. You carve out a niche and you make it happen.
so, what year, if I'm correct, you started out by taking over the forum for NBA 2K, correct?
Yep.
What year
I
was
was
that?
well, I'm sorry, what was that?
What year was that?
2008, 2007, 2008, somewhere around there.
Was that the first official job that you had with them?
With them, yes. Yeah, with 2K. Yep.
That was a paying job. That was you're playing.
Well,
You're
I
a
mean,
fan.
I would say that my first job with them was playing the game, period, right? Like, just like every other fan that plays our game. I was on the top five, of the top 10 of the leaderboards for 2K5. I played it a lot, and I also wrote in the message boards a lot back when forums were the existing social media. So yeah, while I didn't work for 2K until 2008, I was a fan since the days of the Dreamcast, and I was actually a very, very good player and known in that community by this group of fans that has probably aged out of our game now. But um, you know that it started with this labor of love of playing the game, and then evolved into a career, and then from there it's evolved into what it has.
But unpack that. I'm just imagining what was your family, an Indian upbringing family, thinking of you constantly playing a game, and now you're on a forum for a game. Like
It was
what
it
is
was it was a wild conversation. I mean, again, I was lucky enough to get into a really great law school and have a really great law job. I mean, I worked at Morrison Forster and Fisher and Richardson, two really huge corporate law firms, and to pass that up from a traditional sense and be like, I'm gonna I'm gonna go work for a sports video game instead of doing the traditional go work at a corporate lawyer and be really successful. It was a tough conversation to my parents, who thought I was wasting my time playing video games and thought I was wasting my time sitting on the basketball courts. But I think everybody has that struggle. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching, a lot of 2K fans, play the game, and now we've created opportunities where people can play it competitively and get paid to do so. The 2K League, you get paid to play 2K. If you're very good, you can make a career out of it, and that's crazy. I would have never thought that would have been the thing. And of course, I was lucky enough to be one of the first people to do that. But I mean, it's amazing now that so many gamers are making a profession out of gaming, and they probably had the same difficult conversation with their parents to sell them on such a what used to be a really crazy idea.
do you remember when your parents basically said, I get it, and you're happy and you're making a living out of this? Do you remember that?
Uh, I'd say like maybe 5 years into my career. I don't know the exact moment, but I was obviously doing a lot more forward-facing stuff, doing a lot more press, and our also our industry was growing. I mean, 2K in general was getting a lot of prominence in the mainstream media, and it was not just a video game anymore, but it was a cultural icon that anybody could talk to. And my parents would go to dinner parties, and their kids would be huge fans of what we did, and and me as a known figure, and I think that brought them some pride as well.
Because they're seeing other people recognizing you. Maybe they don't see it, but other people are recognizing.
Yeah, I mean they probably don't get it. I mean now they definitely do a lot more, but for a while they didn't understand that like you would get prominence in such a digital space, right? Like for your efforts gaming, doing something non-physical, non-tangible, that you could get some sort of prominence. I think that was unfathomable, not just for my parents, but for pretty much everyone 10 years ago, right? So I think that transitions happen for a lot of people. I think it's been eye-opening for a lot of parents who have seen their kid set up a Twitch channel. And I'm so proud of the people that do that, because it's so much work and to stream, and it's just amazing that some kids just get it. They create a unique point of view. They really get honed in on their messaging, and they're very buttoned up, and they get the technology together to stream, and then they get to a consistent cadence. That's a very professional thing to do, and you see more early teenagers doing that, and it's just really, really impressive.
I read a comment you made that there were a few experiences along the way. There were really big moments that created you. Can you name some of those?
Trying to think. I mean, obviously around launch we've had some things happen. When we put Michael Jordan on the cover, our game took a leap on a national level, and with that came a lot more attention towards the characters that were involved. And so, I've been in the game as a character for about 6 or 7 years now. So that's pretty big. I remember we always talk about ratings and like how some of the players will actually direct that to me, even though I don't actually make the ratings, but I'm the face. So that's the person that gets pointed to, just like fixing the servers, even though I have nothing to do with that either. But when the players started mentioning how important the ratings were on national television, like even over a lot of other things that are actually important in basketball, it was a game changer, right? I remember Hassan Whiteside on a national television game back in 2K14, so that would have been 2013. He's like, he had a triple-double with blocks, and they asked him, why did you have such a good game? And he's like, oh, I wanted to get my 2K rating up. And the next morning, I saw that, and I messaged him immediately. I'm like, that's amazing that you did that. The next morning, he goes on to national radio with Mike Golick, and I forget the other Mike's last name. They go into radio, and they're like, you must have had a lot of people reach out to you last night. Who was the coolest person to reach out to you? And he said, me. And Mike and Mike were like, they went blank, like, who are you talking? Like, who are you talking about? And like, there's a lot of moments. And again, like, I'm just really lucky and blessed that I've worked with a bunch of very, very smart people, and we've turned this game into the national phenomenon that it is, and it's amazing.
But I think what I find amazing is, like, if you take that moment, and there's always moments when things happen to a brand, right? Mm-hmm. Or in this case, a game, or you.
Yep.
And the company you work for, they lean into you. They didn't, meaning they weren't afraid of that. It sounds like, and I'm just reading the tea leaves, they leaned in and said, geez, keep going, right? I mean, that had to have happened.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we realized, especially in the day of influencer, I mean, maybe we were ahead of it in that people really connect with other people as opposed to brands. I mean, brands tell you a story. We built a very manufactured storytelling thing, as any brand, your brand as well. You control that message. A person is human, and you go on that kind of journey with them, and I think like people just relate with that a little bit more. So I think the reason that 2K leaned in was because A, it was definitely working, but B, it was also people liked talking to people, or people liked making a nemesis out of a person. Like I just think that people like following the storytelling of a person. It's much more relatable. It's much more human, and so I think that it was a model that we did that a lot of gaming companies haven't done and probably should have thought about doing.
Is there
Because now
somebody
now now influencer marketing is everything, right? Like
correct?
every
But what I
brand is trying to get influencers in their place. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm jumping ahead, but what I think is you're like a Harvard business case study, meaning like I don't know any brands. You didn't start NBA 2K. You're not the developer.
Correct.
You're not the owner.
That
But
is correct.
what I think is so fascinating is you become a brand for the brand, and the brand leaned into you. And I just think I don't know any other example that's even comparable to that.
I think that's a fair statement, and it takes a lot of trust and a lot of, like I said, um, I work hard. They know that. I am a generally positive person. They know that. So there was a lot more latitude and trust that was given to me, and I'm very thankful to the brand for doing that, because it is extremely unique. But it's also something that I think the brand, like if you think about basketball just generally as a sport versus the other sports, right? In the NFL, people wear helmets. In MLB, they don't do a fantastic job marketing their stars. They also wear helmets, right? In basketball, it's about 5 people, and it's really focused on like the top 20 guys in the league. And you know their stories fully, right? Like LeBron right now is doing such amazing things with social injustice, and a lot of the guys are actually taking a role in that, and just the variety of stances these guys take. Them, their stories, their wives, their upbringing. I mean, in LeBron's case, we've been following him since he was in 6th grade, right? So that doesn't happen with the other sports, and I just think that we took this leap that like people would also connect with, not just my forward facing stuff and telling you about the game, but my background and my interests, and there might be some more connective tissue, and not just with the everyday fan, but also the people that we deal with every day, with celebrities and athletes, which is a big part of my role. Coalescing with the tastemakers in the NBA world, right, and making sure that they are understanding our messaging, and they are very buttoned up. All of that has to be a groundswell together, and it's just easier. I feel like we decided early on it was just easier to do that with a person, because it's more relatable.
Was there
That's probably the
somebody?
easiest way I can explain it.
No, I get it, but I guess I'm fascinated, and I'm trying to imagine. It's like I interviewed Warren Sapp, and I was just talking about him today. Warren was recruited out of high school as a tight end.
Yep.
That's what he was recruited for. And Coach Edrian of LSU, he was a line coach at the Hurricanes at the time, said, Warren, I'm going to make you a defensive lineman and a star. So someone basically said, I'm going to do this, and he listened. Was there someone within 2K Sports that basically said, we're going to lean in on Ronnie, and there's something here? Or did it just organically happen over time?
I would say it was pretty organic. Look, I had a lot of supporters, and I'm so thankful for them. They know who they are, so I don't need to call them out. But you know, but a lot of it was organic. I mean, I don't think when I was typing away on the forums under my Ronnie James Dio forum picture that we thought that my face would ever really get out there. I mean, maybe I think we probably had a feeling it might, but not to the degree that it has. I mean, with the following that I now have, that I get recognized a lot, and that I played in the NBA celebrity game the last couple of years, and just it's nobody would have ever guessed probably that. But when the good thing is happening, and a company is smart, and 2K definitely is, we you lean into the organic. You ride a good wave, and I mean, 2K has had the fortunate thing that they've wrote a lot of really good ways and have an amazingly passionate fan base, very engaged, very vocal, and that push us to be better. And
So,
it's a great thing.
do you appreciate the fact that there's the positive of it, but there's the negative side where you're the face, so let's blame you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Let's.
totally. Yeah, I think you have to embrace everything, and I also have to be very comfortable in my skin. That position's not for everyone. I'm sure you would agree with that, right? Um, I know what I control in terms of what I do and what I'm responsible for at 2K, and I just do it to the best of my ability. And I think that everybody that works at a successful company, that's what happens. You're all members of a ship, and you're all trying to move that ship in a certain direction. And so when I do get some negativity online or positively online, I want to make sure that it's accurate, a representative of what I do. And I think that the people that really understand what I do have understood how, like you said, how it's moved the business and the culture forward in the way that it's supposed to, not in the way of fixing the servers or developing the game. Those aren't that's not my role. So I don't worry about the commentary around that. I worry about the commentary about how we're changing the cultural game, and I think that we do a really good job of that. So
When in terms of culture in the game, whether it's music or fashion or lifestyle, has it been an ever evolving thing, or did it click one day where we got to make this more than just the game?
I think it's definitely been a process over years. I think, again, basketball is about the heroes of the game, and how the red carpet of basketball, which is the player tunnel walk and what they're wearing in that environment. How important music is. A lot of these guys have their own music endeavors going on. A lot of them game. A lot of them have built personalities. I think that all plays into us leaning into that. And so, yeah, I mean, we definitely have found it successful and really gone after it in the past few years, but I think it's always been on the roadmap, right? Even in the way we develop the game. When I first started at 2K, it was about 5-on-5 basketball, where I was playing the Lakers and you were playing the Warriors, and we would control all the players. Now it's really about building your own my player and having your own identity, wearing your own clothes, and standing out, really balling out. That was a multi-year thought process, and then connecting these people online and letting them play together and make friends online. This was all just an amazing path by our amazing dev team, but with the thought that we were trying to sift in a culture more.
When I think about your background, and usually, when I'm hiring people, you're looking at a resume. You didn't have a marketing background. You're not a digital person. You created your own resume. What do you think you got right? Like, what was it for you that gave you that path?
No, actually, I mean, I don't know if I agree with that completely. I mean, I feel like I went where the business was going. Like I thought about where the gaming industry was going to innovate, and then just decided to follow those ones. So like now, I'm very involved in our influencer marketing, because influencer marketing to many brands, not just gaming, is extremely important. Before that, it was social media. Yep. I've been involved with planning around our in-game drops. I feel like I've been involved in whatever the company needs me to be involved in internally, and then externally, you just see me as the communicator to the wider player base. So I think a lot of people see what I do. A lot of people have misconceptions about what I don't do, which is actually being involved with the development of the game. And then I think there's misconceptions about what I do in the background. Um, but we're all just a one big team that's like working towards a ton of success and moving this game forward. So again, I feel like me, along with a lot of people at 2K, fit in where we're supposed to make sure that we are pushing that game forward. And it's really that simple. I mean, I get what you're asking me in a way, which is if I was to build a resume, what would it look like? It would be very unusual compared to most people, but I hope it would also tell the story of I did what it took to be the glue and kind of like go where I felt like the business needed me to be.
No, I have a fundamental philosophy, and it sounds strange every time I say it. I know where I'm going, but I don't have a plan to get there, because that plan is going to change every single day based on different inputs, especially now with social media, especially that you can touch so many different things. Like, you've got to be able to move and adapt quickly. So, which leads into my next question, which is a good one. You wrote something, I read something where you said, you tried to tie those moments both in the game perspective and outside together. Last night, Tyler Haro.
Tyler Hero, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's the talk right now. How do you, he wasn't part of any plan with NBA 2K, right? He's not a big part of it, but all of a sudden he can have a major impact. How do you now include him in that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, obviously, in terms of player ratings, these guys really control their own thing. And they know it. Like, sorry about the dog. Sophie, shush. These NBA players definitely know that they can determine what they are ranked in the game and what rating that they have. So it usually takes more than one simple night. But I mean, yeah, the guy's not even, he was born in the 2000s, which is so crazy. And he has a night like that in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's wild. And then our game needs to represent that. But obviously over a longer sample size. But Tyler's had a great year, and I only would expect it to be better. Hey, cut it out. Sorry.
But don't you see, like, again, that's the beauty of the NBA is you've got hopefully you've got so many colorful people and so many new people, and there's a new generation, and it's like, okay, now all of a sudden there's a new guy on the block. How do we bring him into the fold? How do we, where he benefits and we benefit mentality? You follow?
No, 100%. I mean, we definitely think about these guys. I mean, all of them love it. So, like, to get them to talk about it, we have our My Team mode where we usually have dynamic moments cards that come out to celebrate those people. We definitely celebrate those moments. We have challenges, and it's all about the game experience. I totally get what you're saying. And we've done it for years, and it's a big part of our strategy to interject ourselves into the NBA conversation. And I would even take it further, and we're trying to do even more than the NBA conversation. But obviously, with his performance last night, we look to ways to celebrate that both in social media, like you mentioned, but also in our game. And digitally, what can we do to celebrate that because everybody's talking about it, be part of that conversation. I think it's a big part of what we've done in marketing ever since I've got into 2K.
Do you think it's pretty wild that the NBA is following what you're doing? You know what I mean? And what
the NBA is following what the game is doing? Yeah, I think
exactly.
I think Mark Cuban actually said it himself, which is our game is so great for a couple reasons. It reminds you of the past generations. I mean, if you want to settle the debate between who was the greatest team of all time, it's not really easy to do that, except in our game where you can, match up the 60s Celtics versus the 96 Bulls versus the recent Warriors team, that's possible in our game. But it's also like it's also educating people about the game that aren't interested in the game. There are people that play 2K that don't watch the NBA and I think a lot of it's because of the lifestyle thing that you get to live the life of a basketball player. And then we're trying to turn those fans into NBA fans if they aren't already. And obviously the NBA loves that, but we're trying to grow the game of basketball. We all are, and we're definitely a cog in that. And it's really cool to see that game grow. I mean, I'm just like the NBA is just scratching the surface. It's like I'm really excited about the growth of the league, and we uh, you've really seen in the past 20 years, which is right alongside our releases, and that's just excellent because we've also got to evolve the game and kind of be parallel pathing it with them.
Sure, and I hear you talk about all the time. It's about 365. You've got to have it all year round.
Yeah,
It's something going on, so it's
I mean, and
relevant.
that's the other great thing about the NBA. Even though this year is obviously a little weird with COVID, but generally the NBA does an amazing job in the off season and we're kind of a big piece of that off season, right? Like our game comes out in September. That's a month and a half before the NBA season starts. But free agency, it's the first time you'll ever see these free agents on their new teams. Before you see it
Yeah.
in the NBA, you see it in our game. Before you see these rookies on these teams, you see it in our game. Again, this year is going to be different. This is the first time we've launched a game in the middle of the playoffs. It's like really, really different. But still, you know, we adapt and we work with the great guys at the NBA and we do some cool stuff.
Who, do you, when did Ronnie2k happen? The name.
Uh,
When?
I don't know. Again, probably one of those organic things that like grew and grew and grew, and then it was just a thing. I mean, probably it's really ramped up in the past, 5, 6 years or so. I mean, just like any social media thing, you learn a craft and you hone it and you continue to grow and you continue to get an audience and a point of view. Like I mentioned, I think a lot of influencers that are really honing their craft and getting a point of view are the ones that are successful with a unique, messaging style. I sort of, was doing that, but it's a rolling ball down a hill that picks up steam. I think
Yeah.
all influencers go through that. So
If you
I
weren't
wouldn't be able to tell you. I wouldn't be able to tell you what that point was, but it's been a hell of a ride.
sure, if you weren't doing this, what do you think you would be doing?
That's a great question. I mean, I wanted to be Jerry Maguire. I wanted to be a sports agent. I look back at that and realize I don't think I would have been very happy with that. I don't know, man. I really don't know. I think that maybe, yeah, I think it'd be something in production, and it would definitely, if I had my way, it'd be something in sports. So I don't know if that means, working for ESPN or working for somebody. Like, I've always had a craving for building things, and I've always had that unquenchable passion for sports.
Who was your team growing up?
I'm in the Bay Area, so 49ers, Giants. I didn't really fall for a basketball team. I was just too interested in the stars, and like, so I
Who
was a
was
huge Jordan. I was a huge Jordan guy. Then I was a huge Shaquille O'Neal guy, and now my guy is Kevin Durant. So wherever those guys go, I follow. I remember when Shaq got drafted to the Magic, and those striped baby blue jerseys. Those are my favorite jerseys of all time. And Penny Hardaway and Shaq on that team. And now, like, it's crazy because I talk to those guys quite often, and I'm just like, wow, that's such a huge, I was such a huge fan of you when I was a kid. And like, if I had to go back and tell 11-year-old Ronnie that I was, talking to people that I religiously watched on TV, it's pretty crazy.
does it still? I mean, for me, I still get a kick out of it if someone's ever heard of my brand. I can't believe it. Does it still feel that way for you? The fact that you get to talk to these guys?
Um, I mean, it's
Or
definitely a
less so?
blessing. They're very smart. Sorry about the dog. They're very smart and guys, and they have a lot to impart their knowledge on both basketball and our game. So I don't think I get the starstruck feeling really, but I do get like the joy of having that interaction, especially now. Like we're not having a lot of that in the current climate, except over the computer. But yeah, like I think that they have so much to offer, so I get a lot of kicks out of that, but not in the like, oh my god, I used to be a fan of you type thing. To be honest though, there's been a couple of exceptions to that. When I met Michael Jordan after we've had night commercial shoots like back when he was the cover years ago, and I didn't really, I wasn't really as involved. It was my first few years of 2K. Um, but like when I played in the celebrity game not this year, but last year in Charlotte, and his sons came up and they're like, "Hey, our dad watched you play in the celeb game. They want to, he wants to talk to you about your game." I'm like, Michael Jordan watched me play basketball, like, so I mean, like, those are the kind of things that like that gets you a little nervous, but just like cool moments like that.
Oh, of course, that's awesome. All right, Ronnie, before we go, I do something with everybody. It's just
Okay.
word association. A couple of words. I'm going to mention a couple of things and just give me one word if you can, okay?
Okay.
Sophie.
Right now I'm annoyed.
That's
No,
okay.
I'm just kidding. She's just growling. She even heard you say it. No, she's the best dog ever, but she's very needy and COVID. She's loving COVID. I'll tell you that.
You get to be home. The
Yeah.
2K Foundations.
Honestly, one of the coolest things I get to be a part of. We've refurbished 20 courts across the country, and low-income areas that are battling racial injustice, and getting to bring them basketball. Which, I mean, 2K would be nothing without basketball. I would have no job here. To give that to these communities that really need it is honestly one of the biggest thrills that I get.
That's awesome. San Francisco.
Home for sure. I mean, I've lived here. Everybody's always like, "Oh, you're gonna move to LA because you're doing influencer stuff." I'm like, SF for life. Beat LA.
Fish and Richardson.
That was my second job in the law thing, and I mean, it was tough, man. I was working like 85 hours, which honestly I do now, but it wasn't something that I really didn't want to do. And 85 hours doing something that you don't like might as well be a lifetime. 85 hours now is, my life and my profession interject so much, so it's okay.
Influence.
Building a platform to give back to others.
Love it.
I mean, I do. You mentioned 2K Foundations. I'm very proud of the work that both 2K and I do with Make-A-Wish. I'm on the board, advisory board for Make-A-Wish. I participated in almost 50 wishes in the past 7 years. We're doing something really cool with Make-A-Wish next week that I'm excited about. So, yeah, but there's no point in building an influencer platform unless you're ready to also give back.
Oh yeah. Gaming.
Scratching the surface. I mean, where we go, how more innovative things get. Obviously, the PS5 and Xbox One are coming out, or Xbox Series X are coming out in November. I mean, technology just continues to advance, and gaming is blowing up, and it's so awesome.
Ronnie, I love talking to you. Your story, again, I love business and I love organic parts of business, and I love leaning in on things. And props to your company, props to you, because you've done something I cannot compare. I can't think of anything close to this, where you guys have, it's remarkable. It's such a unique thing that doesn't exist, but I could see this being like the future is, like you said, it's creating this relatable person to a product, and I think it's genius. And you've created that niche, and your company's leaned in on it. I think it's amazing, just amazing, just amazing.
Yeah, I will say that I don't think it's something that you could just recreate. I think you're saying the same thing, but it really comes from my long-term love of 2K. Like, if I was, this guy that just came out of nowhere, hadn't really played the game, hadn't really been on the leaderboards, hadn't really just, I mean, I don't do it anymore, but I would, be up 10 at night to 6 in the morning playing 2K, just like any other high school, college kid that loves our game. But that that can't be manufactured. That has, you just you do it and then you tell that story. And so I think that that's a big part of it. I say this all the time, but even though I work really long hours and I travel a lot and I'm always doing something for 2K 24/7, I also haven't worked in 12 and a half years in a way too, you know?
Isn't that great?
Yeah. It's
No.
it's cool because I feel like I would be doing this regardless in a weird way. Maybe a little bit different, but yeah.
I feel you. Again, if you can, like you said early on, and you've said it before, if you love what you're doing, you can make money in it.
Yeah.
That's where it
You find a
starts.
niche, you find a niche, you get creative, you build your own process, and people get interested, and you figure it out.
Oh, that's awesome. I really appreciate you talking to me. I love hearing the story. Anything me and my team can do for you or for 2K, let us know. But thank you. Stay healthy. Wear your mask, social distance, and votes.
You too, sir. Hey, everybody else too. Everybody stay happy and healthy. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Ronnie. Take care, everybody. Take
care,
care.
buddy.